Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hello. One moment. Good afternoon. Welcome to another class of ethics. We were in the second unit of human values. And today we are going to cover the later part of the unit, which is leaders, administrators. Okay. So today's topic is leaders, reformers, and administrators. Uh, yeah. Can you hear me properly? How are you guys? Let me see. Who all are watching live? Just a moment. Give me one moment, you guys. Hmm. Hello. Welcome. How are you? Good to see you. Okay, so today we are going to learn lessons from the lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers, and administrators. An administrator does the thing right while a leader does the right thing. Okay, this section we are going to cover in the later part. For today, we have um, this section. My goodness, I wait. So today we are going to learn the lessons from lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers, and administrators. First of all, we have Abraham Lincoln. Now we are going to learn we are going to study what are the things, what are the ethical principles that we can learn from the life and the works of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, are you ready and excited for the class? He is remembered for his leadership as the 16th president of United States during the American Civil War. His Emancipation Proclamation, emancipation. What does emancipation mean? It simply means freeing, setting people free, particularly a slave, freeing an enslaved person through the Emancipation Proclamation. And his dedication to preserving the Union. As he is of a different nationality, some of you may not have properly or thoroughly gone through or read about his background. So we are going to discuss about his background and about the whole context a little bit, okay? See, in ethics, we study Lincoln. These are the principles that we learn and we study Abraham Lincoln for. Moral integrity, his commitment to equality, do remember, and justice, and his decision-making process during one of the most tumultuous periods. These principles, these ethical standards are very easy to follow when things are going right. But what about a crisis situation? What about tumultuous period? These leaders are considered to be great globally. They are renowned, they are admired. Why? Because in situations, in crisis situations, in tumultuous periods, they have proved themselves, their ethics and their integrity. In American history, his actions and speeches offer profound insights into ethical leadership, moral responsibilities of governing, and the pursuit of justice. Do remember, equality, justice, pursuit of justice, and decision-making process and leadership and moral responsibility. And we are going to delve in a little bit into his background. He demonstrated moral leadership during a national crisis. Okay, not during normal time, not just during normal times, but during a national crisis. He elevated the American Civil War from something which was a political dispute over territory. American Civil War was actually, it started as a political dispute over territory, and he turned that into a profound moral crusade for human dignity and freedom. Human dignity and freedom. Okay, upheld the principle of equality and human rights. He fought for to set people free, exhibited integrity and honesty, made ethical decisions under extreme pressure. Pay attention. Made ethical decisions under extreme pressure. Because in bureaucracy, you will be under extreme pressure most of the times, and you will be expected to make ethical decisions during those stressful times. Okay, advocated for democracy and the rule of law. Democracy, human rights, justice, rule of law, human dignity, freedom. These are the keywords. And moral leadership, of course. Okay. He emphasized on the importance of what? Personal responsibility and self-discipline. He practiced empathetic leadership, moral leadership, empathetic leadership. Pay attention to these keywords, because these are the words that you'll be required to remember and retain and reproduce in your answer sheets. You don't need to write very long descriptive texts, but the keywords are your life saviors. Okay. Are you practicing answer writing? Were you in the last class, like not yesterday, but last to last class, where we were doing PYQs of Unit 1? Were you there? Did you practice? Were you able to follow? Did you do some kind of homework? Like, did you practice writing on your own? If not, you are supposed to do that, okay? Try writing on your own. Try writing on your own. Then he championed for the cause of freedom through Emancipation Proclamation, of course. And then, yeah, those are the things. Is that clear? Next, we have Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, political leader, philanthropist who served as a president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. Anti-apartheid. Anti-apartheid means being apart. Apartheid is in African language is being apart, the segregation and the discrimination. What happened? The segregation, the discrimination of the blacks by the minority whites. Okay, let's go a little bit into the context of it. Are you there? Are you able to follow? Let me know, those who are in the class. What was apartheid? If there's anyone who does not know about this, let's go into it a little bit. It was a systemic minority rule, the white minorities, a legal framework established in 1948, where a small white minority held 100% of the political power. The minority was about just 10 to 20%, not more than that, were controlling 80% of the majority, 80% or more of the majority, and this minority was holding 100% of the political power. There was no democracy at all. Over 80% of black minority, there was total segregation. Apartheid, total apartheid, forced separation of races across schools, hospitals, and all kinds of public spaces, even beaches, all kinds of facilities, all public spaces, hospitals, schools, all kinds of transport, all entertainment areas, you know, even beaches. Interracial relationships were strictly criminalized. No interracial relationships were allowed. It was strictly criminalized. And there were dehumanizing laws. The black citizens were stripped of voting rights. There was no voting rights. They were forced into barren rural lands. The fertile lands were only reserved for the minority, for the whites. And they were legally required to carry internal passports. Can you imagine? They were required to carry internal passports, or else they would be arrested just to enter the white urban areas. Imagine moving in the same town, just changing your area required you to produce a passport, failing which you could be even arrested. What was Mandela's strategy? How did he fight for it? Did he use violence? Did he use physical coercion? No, of course not. There was phase one in the early period from 1940s to 50s. Peaceful defiance was his strategy. He organized mass civil disobedience and strikes and boycotts, much like Gandhiji, strikes and boycotts to peacefully disrupt the regime. And then in phase two, he adopted to tactical resistance. You don't need to remember phase wise. This slide I'm giving you just to give you a better understanding, a better perspective, and the whole context of it. But all these things you do not need to remember, these years, these phase wise strategy, you don't need to remember at all. Okay. After peaceful protesters were massacred by the state police, he co-founded an armed wing to sabotage the government infrastructure. Then resilience in exile. He was imprisoned for 27 years. See, not giving up, even in prison. He was imprisoned for 27 years. His absolute refusal to compromise his core values triggered massive global economic sanctions. He was firm about his values. Those were his what? Protected values. Do you remember? Yesterday we were studying about protected values. That's how you connect concepts. This is not his sacred value. Is it a sacred value or is it a protected value? Tell me. You're welcome, Aryan. Yes, I will be covering the entire syllabus. Yeah. So relax and rest assured and just put your 100% effort in the classes. Take notes. I hope you're sitting at your desk and writing everything down. Pay attention, remember, write and revise, okay? So his absolute refusal to compromise his core values triggered massive global sanctions against the regime. It triggered massive reaction, massive global sanctions against the regime, and finally they had to agree. The ethical resolution is reconciliation over revenge. Even later, even when he won, even when he was elected as the president, he chose reconciliation over revenge. EQ, emotional intelligence, the display of a highest level of emotional intelligence, where he chose to reconcile instead of taking revenge over the very regime that oppressed, that was that promoted apartheid. Peaceful transition, avoided a gloomy, bloody civil war by actively negotiating a peaceful shift to democracy with his former oppressors, his very former oppressors. He chose to forgive them, he chose to reconcile, and he chose to peacefully shift into democracy. And as South Africa's first democratically elected Black president in 1994, he was Africa's first democratically elected Black president. He chose national healing and forgiveness over vengeance. Forgiveness over vengeance. This example you can use in emotional intelligence. emotional intelligence. Mandela is the ultimate example of emotional intelligence in leadership. He demonstrated that true justice lies in destroying the system of oppression, not the people who ran it. He was against the system of oppression. The system of oppression, not exactly the oppressors, not the people who were running it. There's a distinction. He is celebrated globally for his advocacy for democracy, peace, and racial reconciliation. Mandela's ethical legacy includes his resilience against oppression, commitment to justice, equality, his choice to forgive and reconcile. Amazing. His choice to forgive and seek reconciliation rather than retaliation against those who imprison him. Wow. The people who oppressed him, the people who kept him in prison, not for 1 or 2 years, but 27 long years. And he chose to forgive them, and he chose to reconcile with them. Beyond our understanding even. We study him in ethics for his moral courage, his leadership in the face of adversity, and his profound impact on human rights and social justice. His profound impact on human rights and social justice. Yes? Understanding? Next we have Gandhi, but doing it a little bit later. No. Next, we'll cover Mother Teresa. About Mother Teresa, you have a better understanding, I believe. Okay. What are the virtues? What are the ethical principles that we are going to learn from Mother Teresa? Compassion in action. Compassion not just in feeling, but in action. We can feel compassionate many a times. We can be empathetic. We can understand and feel for others, and yet choose to stop at feeling compassionate, to stop at the feeling, but to translate that feeling into action, to go to the lepers and take care of them, hug them, heal them, that takes another level of empathy, another level of awareness, another level of consciousness that not common people possess. Demonstrates how compassion translates into tangible actions. Most of us feel bad when we see people suffering, when we see elderly, when we see sick people, when we see lepers. But to translate that into tangible action to aid others, that's what Mother Teresa did. Hello, Partha. I'm doing great. What about you? I hope you are doing great too. I mean, all of you, I hope you all are rocking at this stage. This is one of the, wonderful phases of your life where you get to sit down and study and get to acquire so much of knowledge that it transforms not just your preparation but your entire personality. It transforms your entire life actually. So yeah, I believe you all enjoy the journey and not just wait for the result day, not just wait for the day that your name will be in the final list and then you get to enjoy that moment. Yes, that will be there, that happiness will be there, of course, but I want you all to enjoy this entire journey because each and every day matters and this is your precious life after all. So make sure that you feel good about the whole preparation process and the whole journey, not just the destination. Yeah. Yes or no? Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Then we have dedication to the disadvantaged, highlights the moral duty to serve the most marginalized and the vulnerable, most marginalized and the vulnerable. Then we can learn personal sacrifice, the way she has sacrificed herself with no personal. When she died, I believe only only few belongings, only basic things were found in her room. It's a long time that I had read about that story, but maybe only two saris or a simple bucket or few regular day-to-day basic things were left behind as her personal belongings. No wealth, no houses, no cars, nothing like that. Personal sacrifice shows the importance of sacrificing personal comforts for the greater good. She sacrificed herself, her life, her personal comfort, her enjoyment, her freedom, her comfort, her relaxation, everything for the sake of greater good. Integrity and consistency emphasizes reliability in ethical practice through consistent dedication, not just once, not just being compassionate for a season, for a year or two, and then changing the path, but consistency throughout her whole life. She has consistently devoted herself to the service of others. Then influence and inspiration. Influence and inspiration illustrates how one person's ethical conduct, her one person's ethical conduct can inspire. She is a global inspiration, can inspire global change. After years, after decades after her death, we are still remembering her, we are still studying her. So one person's, she imagine her thinking at that point that what can I do alone? Imagine her taking that route and thinking that yes, people are suffering, but what can I do individually? What can my actions, how much can my actions create impact? What can I contribute? How can I change the whole system? How can I change a whole country, a whole society? But instead of that, she believed that her actions mattered, her individual efforts mattered, and therefore she inspired global change. Then we have ethics of care. She is the ultimate example of ethics of care. What is ethics of care? The study of what it encourages reflection on the motivations and consequences of dedicating one's life to humanitarian service. That action, that decision deserves special attention, special reflection, and special thought. Someone deciding that they are going to dedicate their whole life to the service of others, that deserves a whole lot of study in itself. To understand what can be the motivations behind that, what makes a person do so. It's difficult because not everyone can do it. It's difficult. But what makes a person do so? And what are the consequences of dedicating one's life? These lessons encourage deep reflection on aligning personal values with actions to alleviate human suffering. Then we have Aung San Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi. How many of you have read about her? Aung San Suu Kyi. We have to look at her personality critically, a bit critically. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, even. But even after that, the later part of her life changed a lot. it took different turns, and therefore her personality has to be studied critically. Okay. In one of my previous classes, we had discussed about the dangers or the risks of taking someone as a role model and following their ethical principles. I mean, there are so many good things that we can learn. We can learn from Abraham Lincoln. We can learn from Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa, just like we have studied now, Gandhi ji and all. But sometimes there is a little bit of risk in considering someone as a role model and imbibing everything or following each and every word or decree that that person does or says or asks you to do. So, but studying her life is extremely important for you all, for future bureaucrats, because her life reflects how a person, even though you might have the best intention, but in the real world, things are not ideal and things can go difficult. The real world situations can make you do things or have you compromise on the ethical values. And if you are at that situation, that kind of situation, that point, how will you stand? Are you strong enough to stand by your values, or are you ready to compromise? Therefore, studying her life is important from your bureaucratic administrative angle. Okay, let's see. Initially, she was purely the icon. She still is, but her sacrifice and her fortitude up until 2015, before the Rohingya crisis, okay, the struggle for democracy. She has fought for democracy in Myanmar. She was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent principles. Okay, Mahatma Gandhi was her ideal. She spent nearly 15 years. A person spending again 15 years under, oh, I'm sorry, 15 years under house arrest, fighting Myanmar's brutal military dictatorship. Fighting Myanmar's brutal military dictatorship. Okay. She spent 15 years in house arrest. Then her absolute duty of her personal life. She displayed her devotion towards her absolute duty, which is fighting for democracy and preserving democracy in Myanmar, over her personal life. She chose a sacred value, her sacred value. Remember this ethical term. Sacred value, national liberation, setting the people free, national liberation over her personal life, when she refused to leave the country, even when her husband, her British husband, was terminally ill. He was suffering from cancer, but still she refused to visit him because she knew that if she goes out of the country, the regime would exile her permanently. The regime would not, the junta, the military junta, will not let her enter the country again. So, ultimate level of sacrifice. She chose moral duty over her personal life. Then we have global moral standard. Global moral standard. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. She became a global symbol of unshakable integrity, resilience, and peaceful resistance. But there was a shift. There was a shift after 2015. From 2015 to 2020, it is considered globally as a moral compromise. How? The Rohingya crisis, upon becoming the de facto civilian leader in 2015, she became the de facto civilian leader in 2015. She shocked the world by remaining silent She was silent during the military's violent crackdown and alleged genocide against the Rohingya Muslim minority. She was silent. She wanted to preserve her seat, her seat as the civilian leader. Defending the oppressors, she even went ahead to International Court of Justice to defend the very oppressors, transformed from a human rights defender, a person who was once a human rights defender, who fought for democracy, into a political pragmatist. She turned into being a political pragmatist. She even traveled to ICJ in 2019 to legally defend Myanmar's military actions. Myanmar's military actions again against the Rohingya Muslims. What do we learn? Pragmatism versus principles. What should we follow? Proponents argue that she compromised to protect a fragile shared democracy from a military coup. Critics argue that she sacrificed her core humanitarian values for political survival. Now, earlier, she prioritized absolute value over her personal values by not going to visit her husband even. But later on, she was seen to prioritize, to sacrifice core humanitarian values just for political survival. Okay? So you all have to be critical. There's a critical lens. And now, how is it going now in 2020? The 2021 coup, her strategy to compromise ultimately failed. She compromised, yes, but ultimately she failed. She lost both. The military staged a coup anyway in 2021, instantly ousting her. She was ousted from the government and throwing the nation into a civil war again. And then she is in confinement. She is now 81 years old and remains cut off from the world and currently held under house arrest in the capital. And she is in fragile health. So most of her life, she has been in house arrest. So pay attention to this part. Aung San Suu Kyi is the ultimate case study in the conflict between pure ethics and political administration. Ultimate case study. If you are asked to give an example, you can quote her life, you can mention her. Okay? This conflict between pure ethics and political administration. She teaches the students to maintain absolute integrity. Maintaining absolute integrity is far easier as a protester in opposition. As a protester in opposition, it is far more easier to maintain absolute integrity. But when you are in power, then a leader in power, it is much more difficult to maintain integrity when you are in a position of power. When an absolute value like human rights is traded for political strategy, the leader risks losing both their power and the legacy. Just like her, she lost both the power and the legacy. That's all. You don't need to memorize each and everything. Okay. Now, to summarize everything, we have complexity of ethical leadership. In short, you can say that what you can learn from her life, you learn complexity of ethical leadership. Ethical leadership is not always simple, is not always, easy. Her tenure illustrates the complexities and challenges of ethical leadership, especially her controversial handling of Rohingya crisis. And then you learn resilience and sacrifice, of course. And we have Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhian ethics, very important. Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhian ethics, very important. First of all, these are his core pillars. Satyagraha or truth force, then we have ahimsa, then we have sarvodaya, antyodaya. And sarvodaya and antyodaya. So satyagraha, not passive resistance only, but actively seeking moral truth, actively seeking the relentless pursuit of truth. Relentless pursuit of truth. Write these down. Here, he believes in winning over an opponent through moral conviction. Through moral conviction and self-suffering. Self-suffering instead of physical coercion. Instead of physical coercion, relentless pursuit of truth, moral conviction, and self-suffering. These are the keywords, and not physical coercion. Do remember. Then we have ahimsa or non-violence. Here the keywords would be not causing harm to anyone. Absolute resolution not to cause any kind of harm to anyone, not in thoughts, not in words, not in deeds, in no way. Okay, no way causing harm to anyone. It manifests as radical empathy. In order to do that, you will have to have radical empathy and protection of human dignity. Radical empathy and radical empathy plus human dignity. Radical empathy and human dignity in order to practice ahimsa. Then we have sarvodaya, welfare of all, and antyodaya, welfare of the vulnerable, of the last person in the line is antyodaya. Antyodaya, last person in the line, and sarvodaya, you all know, is welfare of all. Note these down. These are the keywords. Then we have administrative teachings. According to him, he says that means justify ends. Means justify ends. Gandhi rejected the idea that a good goal justifies a corrupt means. Gandhi rejected the idea, no matter how wonderful, how awesome the outcome could be, if the means is corrupt, then the outcome or the final action is always corrupt. What kind of theory is it? Tell me. Is it, we have studied about different kinds of theory, isn't it? What kind of theory is it? Consequentialist, utilitarianism, deontology? Gandhi was the ultimate champion of deontology. Ultimate champion of deontology. According to him, the means, according to him, means is important, not just the end, not just the outcome. Means justify the end. Ethical purity in actions is always required, and that is applied in administration as transparency in governance. Therefore, we have to remain transparent, and accountability, transparency, accountability, these are derived from Gandhian ethics in governance. Then we have self-discipline, or he also gave us simplicity and accountability. That is always there, simplicity and accountability in public life. Also, he gave us the 7 social sins. 7 social sins. What are the 7 social sins? Do I have to write it down, or do you know? Politics without principles, wealth without work. Can anyone write down the 7 social sins of Gandhi? Commerce without morality, knowledge without character, yeah, worship without sacrifice, and work without, science without humanity. So there's another part, another chapter where we are going to discuss about all of the 7 social sins of Gandhi in detail. But for this class, just know that the 7 social sins of Gandhi. Is there anyone who can write everything down? The 7 social sins, very easy. But politics without principles, commerce without morality helps us in governance. We derive the values of accountability, transparency from Gandhian ethics. Then we have trusteeship. We have constructive work, empowered villages through Swadeshi, that is there. But instead of constructive work, here we have to mention about trusteeship. Trusteeship was a concept given by Gandhiji where he said that the wealth of a nation, that the wealthy people, the people who are in power, people who are wealthy, are just trustees. They don't own the wealth. The wealth belongs to the public, and the wealthy people are only acting as trustees of the wealth on behalf of the public. They are only caretakers and protectors and managers of the wealth which actually belongs to the public. That is the trusteeship principle of Gandhiji. Then he taught us Swadeshi plus decentralization. He taught us self-reliance. Sorry. Empowering people at grassroots level. Yeah. Empowering grassroots communities. Grassroots communities. He believed in empowering grassroots communities through self-reliance, which was called Gram Swaraj. You all have studied all these in history, but still, you're just revising. And this very principle is lays down the ethical foundation for participatory governance and Panchayati Raj. This very principle is the foundation of PRIs, Panchayati Raj institutions. Yes. Then he also believed in radical transparency, in living a simple life, in accountability, and all of that. These are the virtues, these are the ethical principles, the values and the virtues that we learn from Mahatma Gandhi. And I believe in 2021 a question was asked in one of the PSCs. APSC or UPSC is not mentioned here. Then we have Sardar Patel. Are you all there? Able to understand? Next, we have Sardar Patel. Core leadership traits. What can we learn from his life? What can we learn from his life? We learn pragmatism over ideology. Pragmatism over ideology. He was a hard-headed realist who prioritized stability over theoretical ideology. He was more practical than being an idealist, and he was a hard-headed realist who prioritized stability over theoretical idealism. And he understood that a fractured nation could not protect civil liberties, and therefore he fought for the unity of the nation. Fractured nation could not protect civil liberties. Famously unshakable in high-stakes crises, he was willing to use firm enforcement like Operation Polo in Hyderabad when diplomacy stalled. You don't need to go into the very details here in this paper. This is a part of history actually, But in ethics, you don't need to go much into detail. But for your understanding, I'm just giving you the context. Absolute personal integrity. Kept public duty entirely separate from private gain. See, public duty entirely separate from private gain. He lived an exceptionally austere life, leaving behind negligible personal assets, similar to Mother Teresa, despite handling the immense resources of a nation. He was in power, he was handling the immense wealth of a nation, yet he had negligible personal assets. What are his major contributions? He masterminded the peaceful unification of 562 princely states into the Indian Union. 562 princely states into the Indian Union. And of course, therefore, he's called the steel frame of India. He advocated for the creation of All India Services, IAS, IPS, which is the steel frame of India. IAS, he advocated for the foundation of the steel frame of India, IAS, IPS. He shielded the bureaucracy from political interference, knowing that the young republic needed a neutral, competent, and national backbone to survive. He protected the bureaucracy from political interference. What can we learn from his life? What can we learn? What can we learn? National interest above politics. He taught that regional behavior, regional mindset, having a partisan mindset or personal interest must be ruthlessly subordinated to collective security and unity of the nation. Collective security and unity of the nation has to be the ultimate goal. We have to fight the narrow-mindedness of partisanship, of regionality, and personal interest. Okay. Then politically neutral bureaucracy. He believed that civil servants should speak the truth to a political power without fear or favor, fear or favor, not having the fear to political parties or not even seeking favor, acting as objective advisors rather than executioners. They have to act as objective advisors, not partisan executioners. Then calculated risk management, we learned from him, demonstrated that effective crisis response requires optimal balance of emotional restraint. You have to balance everything. You have to be a realist as well as protect those values, ethical values, strategic patience, and immediate firm executive action. There has to be a balance. There has to of emotional restraint, of strategic patience, and firm executive execution. Firm effective execution it should be. Sardar Patel demonstrates that ethics without power is ineffective, while power without ethics is tyrannical. Remember this line: ethics without power is ineffective. Ethics without power is ineffective, while power without ethics is tyrannical. Good afternoon, Munmi. Can I ask about the PDF of the class to be shared? Okay, we can arrange for it. Now, Bible PDF. Okay, we'll arrange for it. Okay, I'll let you know how you can access, how you can get the PDF. Okay. Then while power without ethics is tyrannical, true administrative excellence lies in using firm institutional authority to protect the larger public good. You have to use firm institutional authority for what? For personal good? No, for greater public good. And I believe we are going to end here today. It's yeah, we're going to end here today. It's a relatively shorter class, and also we will continue the next part tomorrow, Friday. Tomorrow is Friday, we have class. So I'll be taking your live classes from Monday to Friday. Tomorrow we have class, and yeah, we'll complete the next part tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone. I believe you all have understood. In case of any query, any question, any doubt, you can reach out to me, you can ask. And till then, take care, be safe, and keep studying. Okay, is there anything you want to say? Doubts are clear, I believe. And in case you need any kind of guidance, you can just reach out to me. Okay, thank you.